Is 80 years old today.
We tried, but we couldn't get enough candles.
We said we'd have to have the fire department here also. So, if we could get everybody to stand for this young lady and sing happy birthday to her. Really don't want me to sing, so let's just start. 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Linda. Happy birthday to you.
And now for her husband, Mr. Rick Doncaster.
Happy birthday, Eric. Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce Linda Doncaster into the Hall of Fame as a legend. I guarantee she is a legend. Can you all hear me? Okay. And the legend, basically means we're old. We've been around. For whatever reason, we got passed over when the scores were low, but now we're here. But when I'm getting ready to read her resume, and her resume, the numbers just don't even compare to some that people nowadays have. You just have to understand that they come from a different era when bowling balls were hit, for example. She started bowling with rubber bowling balls. She started here in Kansas City with the Dick Weber 5-star rubber bowling ball. You know, some of you all know, the younger ladies and gentlemen really don't understand what it's like to try to throw strikes with a rubber bowling ball or a plastic bowling ball that was a yellow dot that was so powerful in its day. And then the urethane bowling ball came out. Oh my gosh, if you didn't have a urethane bowling ball, you couldn't compete. Well, they had the pancake weight blocks, and they're hardly even good for a 10-pin ball nowadays. We're blessed to be able to throw the resin-reactive bowling balls with the high-powered weight blocks, where you have to worry about pin placement, and you get to see oil rings and flare rings and all of the above. It helps to make the scores so much higher nowadays. But along with bowling balls, you had to understand the bowling conditions on the lanes back then. Today, you have these bowling machines. They go up and down the lanes, and they put oil on any board, on any volume, on any board, on any length, and you can just create any shot you want. Today, you have the house shot. Everybody talks about the house shot. It has heavy oil in the middle, and it flares out to practically dry on the outside 10 boards. And back then, it was not like that. I can tell you, in 1964, told you I was old. In 1964, I was still in high school, but Fagan's Bowl on 39th Street in almost the state line was, I bowled there, I set pins for 11 cents a game, and Mr. Fagan taught me how to do the lanes. Well, he took me out there and he showed me this buffing machine. It was round on the bottom, and that had this long handle. You pull some handles and it starts going all over the place. And you try to keep up with this buffer. Well, they'd buff out the lanes nice and smooth, all the oil, and then it would follow with a bug sprayer. You put a couple ounces of oil in a bug sprayer and you pump it and back up down the lanes, and end up at the bowling alley, which is kind of fogged, and it would settle down. And that was your bowling condition. Even oil across all the lanes, and you got the privilege of bowling on that. it's not to say that people nowadays aren't as good a bowler. We just had a whole lot of different conditions than what you saw back, than what you see today, and it was difficult. When you bowled a 300 or a high score, it was usually in the scratch leagues, and there were a lot more bowling now and then, so they were 9 o'clock leagues, and the lane rep would get called, get him out of bed, and they were kind of grumpy. They didn't like being there, and they wanted to make sure that those lanes, that under those conditions, with those bowling balls, just weren't too easy, because they didn't want to give out a high score award if you didn't earn it. So that's a type. When I read this resume that I'm about to read that was really sent in as their application, consider those scores under those conditions. And really the only way, the best way to think about it is, how does it compare to the people, her contemporaries, the people that she bowled with at that time, and how it compared to the way they did. And if you look at it in those light, instead of comparing today's scores that you see just all the time, that are so much higher, then you get kind of an idea. A good example might be, last month I bowled in a senior scratch tournament, and I averaged 227, and with a whole bunch of old guys, and I didn't cash. I didn't really even come close, averaging 227. Well, in 1976, I had the privilege of bowling, I don't know if you bowled that tournament or not. I bowled a regional tournament in Springfield at Battlefield Lanes. And it was my second PBA tournament, and I bowled the qualifying round, and I had 26 over. I was plus 26. I averaged 26 spins better than 200. And, it sounds like, well, he flunked out of there. I qualified second. So scores back then, I bowled with some of the best bowlers in the world. Of course, Toad was one of them, but I signed your pro card years after that, didn't I? Anyway, Dick Weber was there, and some of the better bowlers in the world were there, and 26 over was second in the qualifying. So keep in mind as I read this resume too. Linda moved back to Blue Springs in 1966 from St. Charles, Missouri. She soon established herself into the scratch bowling community. Linda was also a member of the PWBA for 11 years. Linda was consistently a finalist and cashier in the Scratch Great Plains Women's Bowling Tournaments. These events were held in several states in this region, and many of the region's best bowlers, including many PWBA, now LPBT stars, were in those tournaments. Linda was a regular cashier in these things. Linda competed with distinction on the SMACS team in the Women's Masters Invitational League. Twice she earned Silver Tray Awards for league high scores. She scored 685 in 1973 and 278 in 1974. It was Whoopi. These scores were against some of the best bowlers all the best bowlers in local. This was arguably the best women's scratch league in town. Many Hall of Fame bowlers were members of this prestigious league, which bowled for many years at Lucky Strike Lanes. Linda also competed in many scratch leagues, including on the Blue Ridge Bowl team and the new Masters League at North Kansas City Pro Bowl. Mama Trios in the new Women's Invitational Classic League at Sterling Bowl. Comp Forms incorporated on the Sunset Classic League at Sunset Bowl, gone, and the Suburban Bank and All-Star League at Lucky Strike Lanes, gone. The Mama Trios team in 1986 bowled the highest single game score in the nation that year, 1,200 scratch. Her teammates were Brenda Kurok, Kathy Hinches, Robin Shields, Joanne Joby, and this ended up as the third all-time score in WIBC history. Linda was on that team. Linda bowled in the Conforms team, and on 10/8/1985, they had a team series of 33-23. This is the highest score in WIBC history. Her teammates were Cookie Davis, Sharon McDowell, Tony Saunders, and Kathy Fleming. Linda has many other individual award scores. She has numerous 275 pins. Linda scored 299 in December of '85 in the Women's City Tournament at Antioch Bowl. She has a BPAA watch and diamond ring for that tournament. She also has 2 700 WIC pin awards. They were bowled in 1982 and 1984. Linda earned a BPAA Tournament 275 award in 1971 while bowling in Kansas City Women's Tournament. Linda's 202 average in 1985 earned her a WIBC diamond pendant. She accomplished all this with the plastic and urethane balls of the day, as I was talking about. These scores were rare in the 70s and 80s. The WIBC did not give away diamonds frequently or willy-nilly. Linda has gone on to distinguish herself in the senior bowling community. 3 times she has won the Greater Kansas City USBC Women's Senior Singles Tournament title in 2004, 2011, and 2021. In 2013, she bowled in Missouri USBC Senior Tournament and earned the right to represent the state of Missouri at the Senior Championship Tournament at the National Bowling Stadium in Reno. Her 2 3-game blocks, Linda bowled, were the highest scratch total score for a woman in her age bracket in the country. She did that representing Missouri. In 2012, in the USBC Senior Tournament Open Doubles, Linda and I finished second. The tournament is open to any bowler over 50 years of age and usually includes 2 male bowlers. Some teams had Hall of Fame bowlers. One such team was Gerald Gertzler and Gary Timberlake, for example. We happened to beat those 2. In 2019, at the age of 77, Linda finished second in the inaugural Jolie Grant Tournament. This was open to women of any age. Linda earned the Duchess Award for the Missouri USBC Women's Tournament in 2020. This award is given for the high single game score in the 70-plus age group for the state. Linda is currently bowling in leagues 3 days a week. She bowls on Monday at Sterling, Wednesday at Summit, and Friday in the Senior Traveling League. She has bowled in these leagues for several years and routinely earns high score awards. At the age of 77, she bowled a 279 and a 674. This year, at the age of 79, she has a 265 game. I had a 264 Friday, and she beat me 2 out of 3 games. Linda has been a great ambassador for the sport and the game of bowling, and in my opinion, has had a Hall of Fame career and resume. And thank you for your consideration, and welcome to the Hall of Fame as a legend.
This means so much to me, and thank you, honey, for putting up with my bad moods on the way home after a not so good day on the lanes, and for being my coach. And thank you to my daughter, Julie, and my son, Stephen, who spent many an evening in the bowling alleys doing their homework while I bowled. I used to get them to bed by 8 o'clock and then head out for scratch leagues that started at 9 o'clock. Bowling has been such an important part of my life ever since I started it. My daddy was a bowler in Blue Springs at the Blue Springs Bowl. He bowled in a church league, and I always wanted to be just like my daddy, so I had to take up bowling. And I just have had so much joy and satisfaction over the years. I think the thing that bowling has brought me most of all is relationships. I met Rick while I was bowling at Lucky Strike in the early 1970s, but we didn't have our first date until many years later at Sterling Bowl in 1980. We bowled in their Scotch doubles event that Saturday night, and we've been bowling together ever since. We took bowling balls on our honeymoon when we went to Las Vegas. My oldest friends were met through bowling. I'm still friends with an old friend, Mary Reimer in St. Charles, that I bowled with in the 1960s. Carolyn Jordan and I met at Lucky Strike Lanes in the Women's Invitational Masters in about 1973. And we still bowl together twice a week. And she comes over and has sleepovers, and we have a great time together. Johnny Caldwell started bowling with Rick and I at North Kansas City Pro Bowl in the 80s, the early 80s. And we're still bowling with Johnny twice a week. And Vicki Bowman and I bowl together in the Great Plains Bowling Association, and we're still friends here some 40 years later. So as I look out across the room, I see so many of you that I've been bowling with for many years, over 40 or 50, and I treasure each moment and each memory. And so many of those memories were made on the lanes or while socializing during leagues or tournaments. But I love the competition with the fellow bowlers, but mostly I enjoy competing against myself and trying to do better. The scores don't come as often as they used to, but when they do, they're all the better. Many of my old friends are no longer bowling, some have health problems, and some unfortunately were called home. I treasure every friendship and every moment spent doing what I love, and that's bowling. When Rick and I started dating, I was just averaging about 175 or 80, and I didn't really have any knowledge of the game. I just gutted it out. I just tried my very hardest to do the best I could do. Over the years, after meeting him, he kind of taught me some of the finer points of the game, weight blocks and surfaces and oil conditions and all of that. And I think that learning those new techniques has really kept the game fresh and interesting. And I'm still learning, and I'm still trying to conquer tendons. People ask me what I do, and I usually reply, I bowl. I was bowling a women's handicap league at Blue Springs Bowl in 1969, and I was pregnant with my son, and he was overdue. And the doctor just refused to let me go bowling until I came and was checked out to make sure I wasn't going to deliver on the lanes. So I went up to the Independence Hospital to be checked, and well, while I was there, out he popped. And I called the bowling alley after I had him and said, I'm sorry I didn't make it tonight. I really planned on being there, but something happened. 10 pounds and 15 ounces is what happened. I only missed that one night of league, though. I bowled the following Wednesday, so. Then there was the night I drove to Lucky Strike in a snowstorm on a Tuesday night, all the way from Blue Springs. And it was snowing so hard and I was scared to death. But when I got there, they said, oh, we're not going to have a league. The people who lived 5 blocks away couldn't make it. But as long as I can get to the lanes and send that ball down the lane, I plan to keep on bowling. And thank you, everyone, for the honor that's been bestowed on me and for listening to all this silliness. And I appreciate it so much. Thank you again.